a politician. Neither of those things. So you're dealing with some capacity, some folks with a lifetime of relevant experience, and about 2/3 to 3/4 of people that just had the best bumper sticker. Okay? So that's what you're dealing with. And I want to bring up a little bit about the HB 77 struggle because HB 77, how many know what that was? 2014? Wow, there's a lot of young people in this room. So about 10 years ago, a similar effort took place in the Parnell administration. Sean's a great guy. He was led to believe it was the right way to go on in-stream water flow and water reservation changes that needed to happen because you guys were in the way of everything that was going to create jobs in Alaska, okay? So it passed the House, flew through the House, and it went through resources, and it was ready to go to the Senate floor. They had 10 votes. I was the 11th vote. And I started paying attention to the bill, similar to what we're seeing from the administration today, except they're trying to do it in regulation versus statute. You've heard of the Chevron decision. That cuts both ways, so I think we'll be fine in the long run. But as they're going through that exercise of trying to force that will and take away our ability to weigh in on adequate flow, here's how politicians respond to things often. They respond very well to people that have donated to their campaigns. They respond very well to people that they know were supporters and voted for them, but we live in a very conservative state, and they often see those that oppose unregulated development as being in the way, okay? So your job, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, and I brought this up with the national partnership, is we need an in-stream flow for policymakers, mini course. So you have lots of data. Do you know what data is worth to a politician? I'd like to think I'm a little different, so it's not like, I'm not using that broad a brush, but I'm using a pretty broad one. Like, I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of the folks that are in office that you'll be dealing with. You have to translate your data into something they give a damn about, and you're not very good at it. You're pretty nerdy. They don't speak your language, and it's pretty fruitless. I'll give a really good example. Howard, your presentation that you gave about passage for fish to the valley, that took data and converted it into something that people understand. I don't mean just you were on the team, very well done, got some results. But had you just walked in with charts and graphs, there's a demographic that doesn't trust science. So it is a key issue for all of you, and it will continue to be. In this current effort, we have other challenges. You work for an administration or for administrations that could change. I know there's a lot of different agencies here, state, federal. You have to find a way around the muzzle. That's a challenge. You've got to find people that can translate your message, that do not wear a muzzle, whose careers are not dependent on being in agreement with an administration that can help deliver that message. It's been a state problem for a little while. Could become a federal problem. It's been a federal problem before. So I think my role on the national board is helping with that translation and hoping to build a legion of folks that are willing to do that work here in Alaska. You have the data, you can help us convert the data, but many of you are not able at this time to be on the battleground. So I bring up the HB 77 thing because I was a relatively new senator, and I still have battle scars. Lost a lot of friends. The pro-development group saw me as being somewhat like Sue Mauger and her folks had somehow brainwashed me into some other person. Where's Sue? I know she was sitting. Oh, there she is. She's hiding. And it's just not the case. So when I started turning things around is when I sat down with people. I mean, I said, I'm a commercial, sport, personal use, subsistence fisherman, salmon fisherman in Cook Inlet. I've taken part in all 4 of the user groups. It's culturally, nutritionally, recreationally important, not only to me and my family, but my community and my state. And this matters. And here's why it matters. And it wasn't pure data. I explained a little bit about just the simple reality that, fish prefer water. Pretty important. It's really important that we find a way to work together. Because for those of you that find yourselves either in a temporary or a permanent position of where you can't be the ones waving the flag, you have to pass the flag off to folks that can. Folks that can get attention, folks that know how to communicate, and folks that know how to translate. How many of you are aware that your reach is limited due to your science? Okay, that's good. Saw a lot of hands. That's good. I've talked to people that aren't. I've talked to people that are just amazed that no one is responding to the data. And there's a reason for that, and we talked about that quite a bit. So we're in a battle right now. I think we'll be okay one way or another, because I know there are folks that will be willing to take advantage of that double-edged sword of the Chevron decision if it gets to that point, and it may. I will certainly do my part to the highest level of our current administration to help them understand that, and we'll see what the results are. But the other thing I just wanted to chat with, and I know we're doing a 15-minute thing. We started a little late, so I have just a couple minutes. We really do need to discuss how advocacy can work and what your limits of advocacy are in your organizations. I know we've got some folks that are free to fight, and we've got some folks that aren't. But you may have to be bold from time to time. Like I said, I know what those battle scars feel like. Saw some of my support go away. Didn't really go away enough to make a real difference, but it went away, lost some friends, and sometimes that's just a choice you're going to have to make. You're the experts, and when you're not willing to engage, change is difficult. So I don't want us to be one of those states that are always repairing habitat. The reason why the National Fish Habitat Board has invested so heavily in Alaska is we've convinced them that preservation is a lot less expensive than repair. And I think we'll continue to see that level of result from funding for our projects. But I already hear folks talking about the way it was in Alaska. And it's not that way in a lot of places in Alaska anymore. And trying to help them understand why it matters. One challenge I made to the board, so they put out a video, and I said, there's not one photo of a grandfather and a granddaughter with a big fishing pole and a little fishing pole. It's all about science and data, and you're talking to Congress. You need to help them understand why the two fishing poles matter, not be the ones that are responsible for translating that data into something that matters to them. So I'm happy to take any questions. I don't want to overdo my time here, but I hope I said something that matters, because it does. If there's any way that I can help you in the translation or delivery, I'm pretty fearless, and I'm happy to do that. And there are tens of thousands of Alaskans willing to join us in the effort. They just need to know why it matters and how to deliver the message.
Thank you. Testing. Thank you, Peter. We've got a few minutes for questions, so I'll come with the mic.
Hey, Peter. I disagree. I think people here do have an opportunity to make a difference. I was Governor Knowles' science advisor, and at the time, the state didn't test commercial fish for contaminants because it was a risk, right? They didn't want to know. The commissioner at DEC didn't want to know, wouldn't listen to it. So I'm sitting with Jim Ayers, the chief of staff, and Governor Knowles, and we're talking about contaminants, and I said, we've got to grow a couple. We've got to step up to bat and have our fish tested. Let's look at the science. And he did, and it still is being tested to this date. Another opportunity, I was in France helping with the Erica oil spill. I did oil spill stuff. And a group of people, senators, president of the university, and they basically said the same thing to him. You guys don't have an oil pollution act. You're responsible for doing this. And the next year they had an oil pollution act, and then the EU has the same thing now, following off the French. So there are opportunities for us to make, to stand up and make a difference. And we have the science to back us up. You just got to grow a couple.
I'm not sure we disagree. I think that's what I said using different words. My wife has trained me out of saying things like growing a couple. But but I think we agree completely. Not all administrations are created equal, and not opportunities to make change from within agencies are not always equal. But I agree. If you're willing to step up and push, you'll either get results or you'll get a nice letter that will help you with while looking for your next job. But both are important. You have to decide what's important to you. You all have dedicated your life to this. So you have to decide what you're okay with and how hard you're going to push. But I don't think we disagree at all. I think that's what it takes.
I'm just curious, in your capacity as Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor, what are your thoughts on this whole federal-state management in Cook Inlet?
Well, I'm not currently a member of UCEDA. I'm a 40-year commercial drift fisherman in the inlet. I mean, I have 6 boats. I do every kind of fishing, as you know, Howard. But I thought it was laced with unintended consequences, and that's what occurred. It doesn't work. It's not going to work, and we need to find a better way around it. So it's kind of what happens when you don't strategize and you just think you're so right that everyone's going to agree with you. Again, I'm married. I've tried that. It never works. You have to strategize on the message that's going to get the best result. And that was in my experience. So I didn't fish the federal fishery. I'm not going to. I'm fishing in state waters. I'm an Alaska fisherman. I don't agree with the way that it was laid out, and we have to find a better way. So, yeah, hopefully we iron out that giant wrinkle.
Any suggestions on how we can iron that wrinkle out?
Yeah, the feds should just sign over management of the EEZ to the state, and the state should be willing to accept it. We accept it in many other fisheries around the state. This was a political allocation. You may be aware that in Cook Inlet there are some fish wars and some allocation issues. I know you haven't taken part in any, but they need to get back to the drawing board, talk about what's best for managing the fishery, and this isn't. So, yeah, I hope so. We should all keep the pressure on. I know agencies do what they think is best, but this wasn't.
I think we've got time for one more question.
We've talked prior a little bit about being involved, finding out when the assemblies are happening, letting public opinion know. What's kind of like the number one hub resource for finding out when those assemblies are happening? What House bills are going to be up on the docket for discussion, because if we want to be able to make our voices heard, we need to, where's that resource to find that venue?
That's a great question, and it's an important effort. I think the Fish Habitat Partnership should work together because there are issues all around the state that are impacted by legislation. When you can engage, we should first decipher what the various bills are that are not good for fish, and they're not frequent. Often they're attached to something else. I mean, someone has to have their eye on it. I have a borough lobbyist that is very effective and can help us with that, and then I think we can find a way to share it with the various fish partnerships and agencies that can engage. I think it'd be really helpful. HB 77 was roaring out the door before any of us caught on, and that would have been a lot easier exercise, and I would have lost less friends had we started earlier. So if you wait till too long, it gets pretty bloody. That's a great question.
Let's give one more round of applause for Peter.